Hi, and welcome back to The Far Side. I'm your host. My name is Austin, your high priest, if you will. I know my dear sweet mother thinks that that is the reason I am not getting more traction in the algorithm because I call myself a high priest online, and it's like, no, that's not why it is. I think it's because I like to talk about things like propaganda, and there are people who control the knob that don't want you to know how propaganda works in the modern age. And one of the things I have more adequately identified recently is that I am operating or talking about things at maybe a higher level, and I need to give people a background or basis in this information that I have. You know, but also with the Iran Israel USA war, we are at a proving ground for a lot of propaganda to see what actually works, what does not work, and to find out what to find out what works, what does not work, and then how can they use new, more modern forms of propaganda, or at this point it's almost um more appropriate to call it narrative influence, or how people shape the narrative. Because is it propagandic? Yes. But because of the nature of technology and the access to information that is had today, people have a much easier time now shaping just the narrative in general. And that is the more sophisticated way to go about propaganda. The most sophisticated way to go about it is to not lie. Lying is a thing of the propagandic past. It's unsophisticated and it's easier to prove and disprove nowadays with AI, with Google searches, with whatever, DuckDuckGo, that you can, or I mean, even TikTok search function has probably dismissed more government lies than any other search engine at this point has. Ugh, the numbers, they don't lie. But real quick, while I have your attention before I lose it because of this info dump that is coming, recently in Antelope Valley, and I mean today, the police and animal services, um, I'm going to air quotes this, rescued 700 dogs from a hoarder situation, dogs and cats. And right now, due to the economic downturn that our country has seen and the amount of people who are having to surrender their dogs for one reason or another, whether it be to finances, to not being able to support their medical issues, to people being deported. Again, this is such an easy win for the Democratic Party in like the Democrat fucking triumph state of California. Put a statewide moratorium hold on any dog that was surrendered to the shelter because its owner was deported. First off, that's probably a really good dog. Like, it's not a dog that's getting surrendered because it ripped someone's schnauzer to pieces. I mean, I do think that's one of those tough ones where, hey, dogs do what dogs do. And if you don't guide or socialize them properly, they're a wild animal. They're going to do wild animal shit. Or if they've been bred or trained or bred, sorry, bred for having a high prey drive, which is not uncommon, say, in Malinois, German Shepherds, Bullies, Pit Bulls, etc. You know, there's a large amount of dogs because, you know, like hounds. Hounds are very difficult to tame down unless you have something that excites that drive that we bred hounds to have. They want to go after prey. I watched hound dogs climb straight trees, like straight. I mean, like straight up the tree, sure, but like a fucking pole, essentially. Climb that thing using the barest nubs on the side of the trunk to climb up after a mountain lion. A mountain lion, not even a raccoon or a possum. If an animal which actively can and will try and kill it. Dogs are tough. I love dogs. I've got two right now. Used to have a third, Mr. Sherrill. Peace up in doggy heaven, buddy. Hopefully I can see you one day. And yeah, no regrets. Are some of my rescue dogs a little more trouble to train than others? Yeah, Sherlock was a fucking angel. He was also a 3.5, 4-year-old dog that I got from the shelter that had maybe been in there for a while and was on the red line. I'll tell you what, those dogs know they know what's gonna happen to them in those shelters. And unfortunately, right now, it's a lot of good dogs in the shelters for a variety of reasons that are not the dog's fault. Like I said, they didn't, get out from the yard and then go kill someone's French bulldog. They just got surrendered because maybe it was a little too much dog. The person didn't do enough research into the breed or an understanding of how much time they might need to put into training or socializing or doing any of these other things to make sure that their dog is a good dog for, their life. Um, and yeah, it's a challenge. I've got a dog that I mean turned out to be a fucking coy dog. Do you know how much effort I've had to put into training her? And it's really only recently kind of paid off. It went up, and she's getting a lot easier with people where before she was absolutely a bite risk and, and problematic too because people look at my giant 100-pound pit bull bully mix and I mean I had two guys come by me the other day and they were like, "That's one fuck off sized pit bull," and I'm like, "Yeah, he is. He's a big boy." And pretty serious too, because he wants to protect Karma. Karma is his. I mean, they're bonded dogs. That's how it works. And Karma's highly anxious. My sweet little koi pup. And yeah, once Big Goat realized that we're not necessarily protecting the other, you know, Karma from the other dogs and people, we're protecting the other people and dogs from Karma. So it's been a process. I love my dogs, so we're sticking to it. But I have put an irresponsible amount of money towards pledging to other dogs to get them off the youth line in the shelters. And now, unfortunately, with the Antelope Valley rescue situation, with these 700 dogs getting put out to all these different shelters all throughout Southern California and the middle of California, a lot of dogs that are already in the shelters are going to be euthanized to make space for this. And yeah, just one person on the internet encouraging you, other person who happens to maybe be on the internet as well. If there's ever a time that you have thought about fostering, please do so responsibly. Working with a rescue, donating, doing some volunteer work at the shelter, um, pledging on social media apps to say, hey, you're on Instagram and you see some dogs in these shelter situations and you have 5, 10, $25 to put towards a dog that you feel like, hey, I don't know why, but I just feel like this dog it needs my help today. Great. Anything you can do helps. Period. So now that that's out of the way, before I start fucking crying, um, we're going to talk about propaganda because this whole situation with the dogs and cats and animals in California and Texas, Georgia, Florida, it's probably the worst states right now for it. New York, it's really it breaks my fucking heart. Honestly, just to be authentic to the internet as I hold back these tears. Oh God, whew, you pick your corner of the world and you try new stuff to make it better, and sometimes it just keeps getting worse. So, speaking of Iran, I'm sure there's a lot of people who have put a lot of effort into Iran trying to make that a better country than it was, and I imagine they are extremely frustrated right now. So, to give you all a little background into this, first off, I would like to shout out Claude for assisting me in coming up with this and compiling much of this data because, and this is germane to the topic, right now, the due to both AI, LLMs, and a few other just the pace of stuff that you can do with a computer is so fast that I don't know if I would be able to adequately deep dive any of these topics. I wouldn't be able to adequately deep dive any of these topics if it weren't for AI assistance. And again, germane to the whole situation because there are a lot of things currently going on right now that are being so accelerated by AI or LLMs as to be entirely new in the field of propaganda. This is not something that you've been able to do before. You can't just turn on 10,000 bots, or sorry, in 1995, you couldn't necessarily turn on 10,000 bots from a bunch of cell phones to go do whatever you want to on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok. First off, a lot of that stuff didn't exist. So you didn't need to. You just had to put the propaganda through the main legacy channels. Nowadays, with social media and many people trusting TikTok more than they actually trust CNN, MSNBC, Fox, uh, all sides of the legacy media political aisle, partly because we have data and we can just pull up videos of things that they got egregiously wrong, or things that they might have lied or fabricated, or, we're saying, hey, if it bleeds, it leads, and putting out the first images or first posts and trying to get that going before someone else can steal that attention and that topic. As if the 24-hour news cycle was not adopted by a bunch of people because it sort of offset advertising dollars that they were losing from publications or newspapers and things like that. So then they just decided to double down and go, oh, we'll do this 24 hours, get all the ad thing we can. In a way, now no one has the capacity or the newsroom or the employee strength to spend 6 months deep diving an investigative topic. That in and of itself is a form of narrative control and propaganda. If you can disincentivize your journalistic institutions from adequately surveilling a situation, adequately investigating anything, or that they just go, well, I just have to be reactionary to the next big thing to get attention on my post, to get attention back to the app, back to, say, Wall Street Journal. Great. You are effectively controlling what they can and can't deep dive. So that means anything large, complicated would require a lot of time to both understand, to teach to others, and then to understand what we can maybe do as a citizenry about this thing, or how do we incentivize our politicians to do a thing about it. I don't know. It seems like if you really want to incentivize politicians, you have to give them money. And that is a thing that Israel and a lot of Israeli donors, or pro-Israeli donors, Zionists, oh my God, did they fucking figure that one out a while ago? And you know what? That's why they're winning. The number is like 97%, I believe. That's at least the last one I saw. It's like 97% of American, like, federal politicians, Congress people, senators, are on the Israeli payroll to some degree, in that sense that the majority of their donations, or a sizable portion of their donations, are coming directly from Zionist, AIPAC, or pro-Israeli groups. Notice how I am not saying pro-Jewish groups, saying pro-Zionist groups, because that is different. And I know that recently the definition has been changed, almost like that in itself is a form of fucking propaganda for anti-Semitism. Now, anti-Semitism doesn't just mean the hatred of Jews or the specific selective persecution of the Judaic people. Now it just means anti-Zionism. I'm sorry, I thought like the whole thing was we're not supposed to be for colonialism in a modern day. Zionism is just colonialism, but added a large flavor of end times doctrine and dogma. How do we bring about our Messiah? Look, I am all for respecting people's religion. I'm a silly mystic and I have a lot of strange philosophical and religious beliefs. I do. I place my faith in a strange thing called the great mystery of life, something I will never probably understand. There we go. And yeah, God, just learning how to appreciate a good mystery makes life so much richer. It really does. So these fuck nuggets that decided we have to out Banksy. Seriously? What now? What? Why don't you take that investigative willpower and look into this fucking propaganda? Why is it just me doing it? Reuters, I'm looking at you. First off, number one, fuck you. Fuck you for identifying, potentially, maybe not, Banksy. Why? You fucking losers? Appreciate a good mystery, you damn weenies. Seriously, life is sometimes we just need to not know something. It creates a grander appreciation for life in the universe that I think when we constantly feel like we have the answers just being downloaded to us, we don't really appreciate the full depth of the answers we get because we don't spend enough time appreciating the mysteries around us. And if you don't appreciate the mystery, you don't appreciate the question, you're not really going to understand the answer in its entirety. That's just my philosophy as a fucking silly mystic. All right, away from the Banksy thing. I respect people's religions. I think it is very important to respect religion. It just, whatever. It helps you get through the day. Blah, blah, blah. I stop respecting your religion when you try to involve me in some end times fucking bullshit. And I think everyone should. If you are looking across the table and someone's like, hey, I'm trying to end life on Earth, bring about some cataclysmic Armageddon, you can go to heaven. I think fuck you, you silly little narcissist. You're kind of fundamentally misinterpreting your own religion based on some extremists in the same way like that Ugandan preacher goes on TikTok and says, the rapture is happening October, whatever it was. And then it didn't. Frankly, fuck that guy. Fuck any guy or girl or gal or woman, whatever, man, in between, outside of the gender binaries. If you're trying to be like fucking we're all gonna die, yeah, it's like I think you should be locked in a box, a nice box, a big box, and ignored for the rest of time. Just go. Granted, can people make mistakes? Absolutely. Did that guy make a mistake saying that the rapture is happening at that time? Yeah, he made a mistake. Is involving everyone in your Armageddon plot good? No, it's fucking disgusting. It's deplorable, especially considering this is just me speculating. But like after having done so many deep dives with all this stuff, one of the things I get very frustrated about with Zionism and with Israeli propaganda, particularly, the U.S. does this to a degree, sure, but the US is running with a playbook that's 20 years old and they have not updated. So that in and of itself is part of the issue that many people have ingesting official US narratives because we saw this before. We saw all this before with GWAT and the Great War on Terror for those of you who are too young, and 9/11 and everything that happened after 9/11. It's all the same shit. Oh, weapons of mass destruction. We can't let this person have weapons of mass destruction. Oh, we can't let this person have nukes. We can't let this country have nukes. But if we applied the same fucking logic to Iran having nuclear missiles, how have we missed out on Israel having nuclear missiles? They actually have a nuclear program that is completely illegal and unsanctioned by the bodies governing nuclear science and nuclear development. Israel's not bound to a single treaty regarding nuclear armaments, diffusion, storage, any of that. They're not subject to any of that. And they have nuclear weapons. They are a rogue nuclear state. And we just go along with it willy-nilly because we have to. Fuck if I know. That's why personally, like my own personal conspiracy theory regarding the Iran war that will maybe take the Israelis by surprise is when the US and the CIA finally get their sponsored Kurdish state. I know the Kurds, at least some official leadership has said, hey, we don't want to join this war. We don't necessarily want to carve out our own state right now. We just kind of want to have our own region and be recognized for this. But in case you haven't noticed, three-letter agencies that work for the United States government, or maybe the United States government that works for these three-letter agencies, will just do what the fuck it wants, when the fuck it wants, and fuck you for even thinking that you can control that. So, I mean, personally, I could see a Kurdish state coming out of this, and by a nation state, its own independent country, that we support and we put forward, that we fund because it will be a thorn in Israel's side if we, the US, who is starting to recognize how difficult of a partner Israel is, especially considering they dragged us, literally dragged us, though not kicking and screaming, unfortunately. And that's where I think many of us are frustrated with our own government's leader. Like, no more foreign wars, no more foreign wars, is now bombing the shit out of a country in the Middle East again. Oh, deja vu. That's why the American propaganda is not working very well right now. So, yeah, the rise of a Kurdish state, I think, would be a fantastic antidote to Israeli intervention, both in our own country and in the Middle East. It's like sometimes with video game companies, really any company that has, market share, Coca-Cola. Well, it does better as a product, that Coca-Cola, if Pepsi exists, because it forces competition amongst Coca-Cola. Now, is a Coke always going to be a Coca-Cola? Sure. But if Pepsi comes out and says, well, we're doing Pepsi with a twist, well, then Coke has to try and innovate as well. One other current one is Arc Raiders. I very much enjoyed the Arc Raiders game. I'm not a big third person shooter guy. So that kind of lost me at a certain point. But then this other game comes out, Marathon. I fucking love it. I have not gotten to play it as much as I would like to. And all my YouTube stuff is like, oh yeah, gaming for dads, because apparently YouTube thinks I'm a single dad gamer. They're not far off, but the only reason I refer to my dogs as fur children is because of how expensive it has gotten to own dogs in the last 5 years. It's never been cheap. Stuff always happens that you have to pay money for. But like, oh my fucking God, has dog ownership gotten more expensive. So if you do want to help with the shelter system, just be aware it's not cheap. I highly, highly, highly recommend you get pet insurance and ask your veterinarian which one they work with. Don't just try and find the cheapest one that who knows what their policy payouts or what it's actually going to look like when it comes to coverage. Ask your veterinarian what they recommend, what is an insurance that they work with. It will make your life easier, especially, God forbid, you have to do some expensive type surgery that has like a 50-50 chance of success. I mean, I'm at a point where I need to relook into all that stuff. And you know what? Hopefully it saves me a little bit of change. But yeah, it's I refer to my dogs as my children because it's gotten to be expensive as children, especially in fucking California where everything is just everyone wants to the US is just filled with temporarily embarrassed billionaires. That is it. All right. So propaganda. First things first. Wow. These days, a lot going on. A lot going on. So, one of the more important elements in the architecture of modern propaganda is pre-narrative direction, or as it is more sexily called, preceding. Not preceding like a thing that comes before another thing, but Preseeding. Sort of like what you might do before you seed plants. Maybe, like when you poke the hole in for the seed and you put a little fertilizer or something in there, or food, seed growth food or rooting tonic to help things spread and grow. Preceding. How are you creating an environment for your narrative direction, for your propaganda that isn't necessarily lying? You're not telling direct falsehoods, but you are selectively putting forward certain things and you're holding other things that are counterintuitive to your narrative back. As this is one of the most insidious modern techniques because it operates before the propaganda event itself. The core principle: shape the information environment in advance so that when the event occurs, the interpretive scaffolding in place. So, in practice, it works like this: weeks or months before intended event or narrative push, say say the protests that were happening in Iran. The protests that were happening in Iran are an excellent preceding event for much of the information that has been coming out since. Say like Netanyahu in his most recent videos that are potentially AI, and frankly, I think a distraction in and of themselves. I think, frankly, Netanyahu is alive. I don't think he is dead. I think things would be going differently if he was actually dead. I don't know how they would be going, but I think they would be going differently. He could be dead. I don't know. I'm not in the Israeli skiffs. I don't know. But one reason I think he is alive is because these videos that he's put out where there's these little AI glitches, um, and some of the acting or the way people are presenting themselves just feels facsimile to when these people actually present themselves. It feels like there's some uncanny valley thing that just kind of makes all of us on a gut level feel like that's weird. That doesn't feel like the way that person normally acts. Their cadence or their tone throughout the whole thing, even though there are dips and highs, is just too wooden. It feels fake, plushy to me. So, but because of those many instances of how the protests and riots were being reported on in a global stage for an invasion of Iran, that, hey, this is a very destabilized country. Look at the people. They don't even want this leadership. So if we go in and decapitate it, by all means, people in Iran would love it. I, on the outside, is supposed to take into these when we are looking at them currently. That we saw the protests, we hear about the 30,000 dead Iranians, and we go, yeah, we should get rid of these leaders. We should take these people out. And then there's a bunch of people, Israelis, sorry, not Israelis, Iranians that are part of the Iranian diaspora out here in California, in the US, Europe, that are saying, look, hey guys, we really want this guy dead. But we're not hearing really anything from people in Iran who might have liked the guy. And yeah, that's one way that you can kind of precede and push the narrative in a direction you want, say invading with boots on the ground or drone striking the ever loving fuck out of some schools with a bunch of children in them. Oops. I mean, war is hell, but yeah, I don't I think because of how many people sort of just loved Obama, um we have like a really weirdly twisted view of how war actually works, because so many things about drone strikes going wrong or people being injured or killed or at one point even starved. There was like 200,000 people in Iraq that were starved by Hillary Clinton's now I could be getting some element of that wrong, but someone basically said, hey, all these people aren't getting food, they're getting sanctioned, and a lot of people died. um th- we would very much, especially the Democrats, that based on current stuff, really don't like seeing people in the Middle East getting bombed or blown up or killed or whatever, like genocided. It just does. It's a icky feeling for them. Um, I encourage y'all to look into how many people died during Obama's presidency alone, not including Bush one, or sorry, Bush two, or Bush one, or Bill, but just Obama. I mean, the guy got a Nobel Peace Prize. Talk about pre-narrative seeding. A guy a fucking Nobel Peace Prize with his like first couple weeks, month in office, or maybe it was before he even took office. But he actually got a Nobel Peace Prize. And I once I saw that, I was like, "Oh, wow, I made a mistake with my vote cuz they're going to use his Nobel Peace Prize as a whitewashing mechanism for a lot of heinous shit that involves dead Middle Eastern people." And given my granddad came from Iraq, uh, yeah, you could say I felt that one a little differently than my classmates when they're all like, "How could you be a terrorist?" And I was like, "If you sent a drone and it killed a bunch of my cousins, I would be a terrorist that day, like immediately." And that's not an ideological thing. That's just a human thing. There's no religious jihadi element. That's just basic humanity. Oh, you killed members of my family. All right, you've changed the course of my life, irreversibly so. So I do think one, we would maybe be I don't know if less punitive of Trump is the right word, but I think we would have as a society a better understanding for the cost of doing business in these wars for America. I think a lot of that got sanitized, and unless you are a tinfoil hat aficionado like me, you you didn't get the full breadth of like how many innocent people were killed during Obama's drone strike campaigns. And how many people, once they realized that we were drone striking, were just like, oh no, I will surround myself with innocents at all times so that they won't get me. Well, eventually the US said, no, we were done. You can hide behind the innocents all you want. You're at all right, you're out in the open. So that being like a pre-modern, or not pre-modern, it's very modern, um, a preceding event that goes back a little while because it allowed many legacy media elements to just sort of call Obama the peace president or the good guy because he got this Nobel Peace Prize. Um, but there was another person that got a Nobel Peace Prize that presided over a ethnic cleansing. I believe it was in Myanmar. Lady gets a Nobel Peace Prize, and all of a sudden they're just like, yeah, we got to get rid of these people. Funny how that happens. Funny how that happens. I can't wait till Netanyahu gets his fucking Nobel Peace Prize for whatever the hell he's doing with Iran. Oh, look at he liberated Iran from the Ayatollah, which could very well be a good thing, but time and place and context are important, especially what happens to Iran after the fact. If it gets better, then great. We can all go, hey, this was the good thing to do. But if it's real fucked up for the next however many years, well, it's whoops, contentious. So that said, you put it on Kalshi now. What's his name? Zelensky won't get a Nobel Peace Prize. I'm willing to bet, unless he for some reason like shoots Putin right in the face. But I do think that Netanyahu, assuming he is alive and not dead, is going to get a Nobel Peace Prize in the next 3 years. Just calling it now. Just calling it now. Given the amount of, ethnic cleansings that Nobel Peace Prize winners seem to be increasingly presiding over, um, yeah, just a thought. Okay, back to the preceding narrative and how it works. So, weeks or months before the intended event or narrative push, operators seed social media, forums, diaspora communities with loosely connected but directional content, not claims, just framings, a theme, a villain, a grievance, a symbol for everyone to kind of bookmark in their minds, their memory. It's not so much that they are meant to actively look at this thing and go, oh, aha, yes, this that you are telling me, obviously, duh. No, no, no. It's that puts a bookmark in your mind that when the actual event happens, you go, aha, I remember this thing. They were talking about it a couple weeks ago. How strange. When the actual event occurs, a strike, a death, a protest in Iran, for example, the audience doesn't encounter raw information. They encounter it through a pre-built lens to look at the ICE protests or anything involving ICE in America right now. We have been so primed by ideological political differences along the Democratic Party and the Republican Party that based on the outlet that's reporting on anything involving ICE, if you're not completely brain dead and you got 3 brain cells to rub together to create some heat, it's pretty easy to guess what Fox News is going to say with Renee Good or the Preddy guy, or what MSNBC is going to say. You just know. And often, by the way someone talks about something, say like the Preddy shooting or Renee Good, you can gain an incredible amount of insight into their political biases by what they think of this topic. So, you know, you're encountering pre-built ideological lenses that make it all of a sudden really easy to just not think critically about a situation, but to put the situation or the event on the railroads that have been built in your mind by someone else, and just let that railroad take this event or uh, situation. I have not had enough water to drink nor sleep for the last while. Um, so it does a disservice obviously to its citizens, but it it works better, this preceding narrative stuff, when you have some respect for the people that you are trying to precede with this narrative. I think that's one thing that Israeli propaganda does poorly is it treats us all like stupid goyim, stupid goys, just basically slave-minded retards. And you really see it in some of the propaganda coming out from the free press. Fuck you, Barry Weiss, you Zionist shitbag. Like, God, I have read some articles on the free press that are genuinely shocking in how naked the propaganda is. But again, that's because they don't respect us. They don't really think that we're that intelligent. They think our brains have been completely rotted out of our skulls because of who they see on TikTok, which, hey, those people might have their brains rotted out of their skulls. But I also think the social media has shown a lot of billionaires that, oh, the underclass actually really gives a shit about the Epstein files and the things that we are learning about as a result, because you have tinfoil hat weirdos like me going, hey guys, see, we were right. I'm not happy I'm right. It's fucked up. I hate that I am right, but I'm right. You cannot take that away from us. Would we like an apology on some of this stuff? Yeah, sure. Are we gonna get it? No. Is that fine? Just I'd be willing to just we take it as a buy or leave and we all just move on, recognizing that terrible, terrible things at the highest levels to children, women, men, because they don't feel that they are bound by the law. And part of the reason that they feel the license to do these things to innocent, everyday people is because, on some part, many of them think that they are like a species separate from us. And in much, say, Zionist rhetoric, it literally says that we're different and better than you. We are the chosen ones of God. Great, that's your religion, whatever. But when you start acting like it and you start treating the rest of us like fucking cattle, that's when we have problems. And frankly, yeah, your propaganda, Israel, would work better if you treated the people that you are trying to propagandize with a little bit of fucking respect. Do you want to be effective or not? Like that's if you don't want to be effective, keep treating everyone like retards. Do it. Please. Keep treating them like idiots that can't rub together 2 sticks to create heat. Do it. See how it works. It's eventually going to backfire on you. That said, all right. So, a textbook example, which we will maybe go deeper into today, I might go live here later this weekend or on Monday, and we will go into this specifically because this is an example from January. Oh, sorry. Uh, from 2003 is when this was starting to be built, and the seeded content didn't happen till January 2025. So it was called Prison Break, and it is a Israeli operation. 2023 and seeded content 2025 and the Evan prison deepfake in June of 2026 didn't need to convince anyone from scratch. The audience was already primed to associate Evan, which is the prison, Evan as a symbol of a very oppressive regime. And if it is broken down, the liberation of the people from this regime. So the academic term for this is narrative priming, but the operational version is much more aggressive. It is not just priming interpretation, it's constructing the category system through which facts will never be or will later be sorted. And this moves us into how AI kind of changes things. Or I guess we'll go back into this. So the formal mechanism is documented in CISA's. Oh God, what does that acronym stand for? We'll get to it later. CISA's published Disinformation Tactics Guide, which describes how disinformation actors exploit data voids and information gaps where insufficient credible information exists by generating influence content and seeding search terms on social media to increase the likelihood that audiences encounter disinformation without any accurate counterpoint. So that means if you're looking up anything to be like, what is this thing? Are these videos of Netanyahu totally normal or are they AI generated? And there are a lot of people, influencers, bots, people that have been bought and paid for, that immediately just go, oh my God, yeah, Netanyahu, thank you. Yeah, you. Or Barry Weiss in the Free Press putting out articles talking about how Zionism is good for you and me. It's like, come on. And then you have bots in the comments going, oh my goodness, all these anti Semitic comments talking about blah, blah, blah. It's so important for this article to be shared. And part of that is to try and create an increased persecution complex amidst the people who are perpetrating the Zionist agenda. Let's just say, yeah, the Jewish people have a lot of ancestral trauma. And I thought it was very interesting that the same people who are about generational trauma and ancestral trauma and all these psychological buzzwords. I like how they all sat right when October 7th happened and Israel just started wholesale getting rid of a lot of Palestinians. Not that I'm excusing it at all, but I think it's important for what people it's important for how people interpret the events. That yeah. So you go on X, you go on Twitter, and you look at the AI deepfakes, where you're going to see some people that are just spreading disinformation about it to try and discredit the people who are saying, hey, look at this glitch. Look at this weird artifact. Look at how in some of the frames he has a ring and then it magically disappears in other frames and then it comes back. Or pockets that just don't act correctly. You'll get people going immediately, well, that's a tension pocket. It's built like this. Da, 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 da. It's like, no, it's not. You are trying to create a situation where anyone looking into this just goes, there's so much noise that I don't know what I'm reading, and I'm just going to tune out. Getting people to just be overwhelmed and exhausted by the information is absolutely a portion of this whole predicament. So now we get to the AI stuff. And again, I don't think Netanyahu is dead. I don't. I think he is alive somewhere in some bunker telling everyone, hey, keep putting out these AI fake videos of me because it's all anyone's talking about. And it's all anyone's gonna talk about for the near future so that they can prepare to do something crazy, say on this holiday of lights that Netanyahu keeps in these videos bringing up. I'm blanking on the name of it. Naharem, I think, which is an ancient Persian, like I think New Year's celebration festival, or you could say like a spring equinox type festival, welcoming the coming of spring from the depths of winter, and a celebration of light and life. And telling people now is the perfect time to overthrow your government. Right as this comes at the end of Ramadan and the Eid Eid al-Fatir. I apologize for my pronunciation being bad. Um, and sorry, I just want to scream wordlessly because this is also frustrating to me. Uh, he's preparing for something. And one of the best ways to get people to not spend a bunch of time focusing on Israeli military operations and or troop movements or logistical movements and to just focus on this AI thing, great. You've successfully distracted half of the internet. And now you can do what you want based on a timeline that you are setting for yourself. You don't need to be hastened by someone else's timeline because they are on to you, because they're currently all distracted on whether or not, the disappearing ring is a glitch of the light or is it a glitch of an AI video? Why does this one woman say, oh, it's an Israeli dog breed? It's like, I don't, what? Some of the things in these videos don't make any sense. So, AI assisted selective uptake, the selectively true timeline. And this is a thing that uh, basically means that you never, like I was saying earlier, you never need to lie if you can control the selection and sequencing of truths, particularly through social media. Legacy media allows you to lie or put a certain element of narrative spin, but the selective uptake with AI is so much more well controlled and, in my opinion, insidious as to how it works, because many of us, while we are ingesting social media, are in kind of this like problem solving brain state where we're not actually trying to solve anything. We're just kind of trying to solve the problem that's in front of us, that is this basically sliding around on our phone, and our brains are in kind of a subconscious place for ingesting information. We're not actively engaging with everything we're seeing. It's just kind of going through our brain and then on to the next one, on to the next one. And we never stop and really like evaluate what we just watched or try to remember it or even reflect on it, going, oh, that was funny. It's just on to the next thing. So that kind of cycles this information deeper into our like mid brain areas. I know that's a unscientific way to view it, but it's bringing it down in our subconscious so that it's there as part of the environment in which our conscious mind lives and tries to interpret the world around it. So, the mechanisms for how this works are ingest a very large corpus of real, verified, sourced information, whether this be active about the event that you are trying to propagandize or other similar events, say during many bombings in the Palestinian regions for what has been going on between them and Israel, or more specifically, what Israel has just been doing to them. Um, there were bombing videos that circulated all around social media that, when reverse image searched, found to have come from, say, Syria and the Syrian civil war. That one, some people see it and go, wow, that means that these other videos that I'm seeing of children getting pulled out from rubble, how do I know that's today? How do I know that's not from Syria or that's not from the invasion of Mosul back in 2014? How do I know that that's even a contemporary thing that I'm looking at? And a lot of times you don't. So again, or to take the whole, an increasingly large grain of salt that dilutes the actual truth. So then you filter out the narrative, you filter by narrative alignment rather than chronological completeness when it comes to how that post or how that thread or how that X post or whatever the tweet is put out to the rest of the internet. And you go, oop, anything that's actually coming from videos of Palestine or Gaza as per the last year or two, great, we're going to throttle that way down. And anything that is sourced or coming from Aleppo, coming from, greater Syrian war, we're just going to turn that up. Just going to turn that up, the dial. And before you think they don't have a dial, Matt Rife goes, big social media comic. I mean, he's a stand-up comic, but he got big because of social media, got very big on TikTok with crowd work clips, and kind of revolutionized social media and how comedians work with it to the benefit of many social media comedians. Um, but uh, he asked, why am I not any engagement with my 20 million followers on TikTok? And the TikTok representative said, well, we're just not watching stand-up comedy right now. So, try and follow some of our other trends. And he goes, but I'm a stand-up comic. Like, what I do is this. This is my art, and this is how I reach the people, because this is why they follow me. And they just go, why don't you try doing like a trending dance next time? That'll really keep them engaged. It's like, no, it's not how it works. It's not at all how it works in terms of audiences. That's how it works in terms of narrative control. Almost like the people that bought Twitter, Larry Ellison, have a vested interest in narrative control over just having a social media app that benefits for the sake of itself. It's no, you want this to be doing a thing. Remember, if it is free, don't trust it. And so, to consolidate, the next step from there is to output a timeline or set of talking points where every individual fact is true. It is objectively true. But the selection and sequencing creates a false or maybe casual or maybe an incorrect moral picture. So you frame it lying by omission. Really, you're trying to buy a car from someone and they're not telling you anything about this, but they're telling you how beautiful the interior is, and you're like, why does there 100,000 miles? Can you tell me something about how the transmission is working, how the engine's running? Do I need to get new oil filters the second I take this car off the lot? And they go, yeah, but the interior is fucking beautiful. Look at that leather, and it's got some burgundy trim. It's like, yeah, but I want to talk about this. And they're like, what? But look at this. Look at this. Objectively, it is true. That interior is gorgeous. So we'll say it's an M3 BMW. Beautiful interior. But the car's been through some fuck shit, and it was being run by a bunch of like drag racing street racer kids, and the car's kind of fucked, but it looks real good. So it's a beautiful car. And they just keep harping on how it's a beautiful car that he's trying to sell you. And, yeah, it's got, I mean, there's some things, but like, again, dude, look at this interior. The dates you can have when you bring this car around, they sit in this burgundy leather and the gold trim and blah, blah, blah. That. Or another way to view it is the Iranian protests that happened preceding the bombing and torpedoing the actual escalation of the war. A lot of people are just hearing, that this is a revolution of people in the street, and not understanding the complicated nature of Iranian politics or any of these other talking points that might require more information to learn, or you might expect that the news source you're getting it from is going to explain to you how this works. Well, they're not going to do that anymore. They're just going to go, it's this. It's just this. Don't think about it too hard. Don't do your own research. Remember the pandemic when they told us not to do our own research? It's democracy theoretically only works if you have an informed, educated populace. Of a democracy, for example, what would be one way to take a lasting element control away from the citizens in the country. Don't educate, keep them stupid, and make sure that all their entertainment is geared towards an eighth grade level on purpose. No, even adult stuff. Keep it to an eighth grade level. A lot of stupid people out there. So then we never create any art or meaningful entertainment that is at a high, elevated intellectual level. We just don't. We don't really have any like, well, that's adult humor because it's like everyone just expects, no, a kid's watching this anyways. Can't show sex or titties, but we can show someone's skull getting fucking blown up and their brains going everywhere. And we wonder why people in the US are a little fucking weird. I think that has something to do with it. I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell's dad, Robert Maxwell, owned, or I think was a contributing owner in McGraw Hill, which were the textbooks that if you're a American US citizen like I am, you grew up reading. It's almost like it was a bunch of preceding narrative information that was designed to put us into a stupid, complacent place later on in life. I digress. The Harvard Kennedy School's Misinformation Review captures the underlying principle well. Demand for misinformation is relatively easy to meet because the particular content of misinformation is less important than the broad narrative it supports. This means an operator who doesn't need to fabricate facts, they only need to select facts that serve the narratives and omit those that undermine it. So the Panas Nexus study on AI generated propaganda, I believe this comes from Oxford Academic, makes the production side quite explicit. With AI, actors, including ones without fluency in the target language, could quickly and cheaply generate many articles or videos that convey a single narrative while varying in style and wording, increasing the volume of propaganda while making it harder to detect, since articles that vary in style and wording may look more like views of real people or genuine news sources. Or, to move it away from articles and more traditional forms of information sharing, posts. If I see that, wow, this hashtag Evan prison break, hundreds of thousands of people retweeting it or hashtagging it on Instagram, I'm going to have a view that, wow, this must, and all these accounts are related to people in Tehran. I don't know any of that's not true. I don't know that a bunch of bots in Israel or South Korea have just made that happen. A bunch of people in India getting contract bounties of what information they're supposed to share. I'll get the notification that hey, you're supposed to share something revolutionary and positive about the breakout from Evin prison and how the Iranians need to now rise up against their problematic regime. It's true in that a lot of people are doing it. And then if they see that, wow, look at these hundreds of thousands, millions of people all posting the same thing right now, it conflates in our mind immediately based on some primitive protection mechanism for early modern, or I guess Iron Age or Bronze Age or pre-Bronze Age or fucking Stone Age societies, where if everyone's kind of saying something or everyone's kind of sharing the same element of knowledge or information, that means I should probably heed what I'm hearing and being told. That was before you or I could go license a bot network to just fucking spray bots all over the place and then falsely get people to go, well, this has been talked about millions of times. That must mean millions of people are talking about it. No, it might mean that 200,000 people are talking about it, but they wouldn't have been talking about it if it weren't for the 800 selected. And then the AI stuff with Netanyahu and him kind of slowly disclosing that, like, hey, something crazy is going to happen this weekend through these AI videos, but everyone seems to kind of miss the content of what he is saying for how he is saying it, because it is so obviously, at least to myself and many other people, AI videos, or they are other videos that have been doctored with AI or put an AI overlay of some sort to increase the visual confusion, the glitches, and all that stuff to create a conversation that was not being had, because by creating that conversation, they create a smokescreen for other things that they want to do. Then they can have a bunch of bots go into the whatever, the chats, the comment sections, and turn up the noise for this stuff, both sides, to say, oh, yeah, that's totally AI. And then other people to say it's totally not AI. Create arguments and conversations in the comments that have people focusing on this, an obvious distraction, rather than why do they keep saying that they want the Iranian people to rise up on the 20th and 21st? Strange. That's odd. Are they planning something? I'm not going to pay attention to it because Netanyahu has 6 fingers in one of the videos. So then the LLM grooming and the poisoning of the AI knowledge base. This, frankly, is one of the things I am personally most worried about when it comes to having AI in entertainment. Because entertainment is not just entertainment, especially in our modern age, it is also our myth and legend apparatus. We're not, sitting around the fire telling stories of Achilles and all the things he overcame, Hercules. We're not telling the tales of King Arthur, in the campground or around the hearth. We're not sitting and discussing Jesus and all that goes on in there. And that's an important foundation of myth and what I would say deep subconscious carrots and sticks for how you act and how your morals lay out. Uh, just give myself a personal example. Batman, probably one of the most important mythological figures for me as a man and as a boy. Just like, take all the dark, strange rage feelings and try and do something good with it. And if you got to go after someone, don't kill them, because that means that you've lost yourself to your rage. But there were also a lot of dark days, or days where I didn't feel like doing whatever I had to do. And I just went, well, what would Batman do? Batman call you a bitch and keep doing more push-ups. Batman would go do this thing. Batman would win this wrestling match. And you go, fuck, well, if he can do it, I can try. So now if you take the AIs and you have a bunch of AIs making all of this stuff, well, what if you just turn up cowardice a little bit, or you make it virtuous subliminally, basically, to be an avoidant in many of these capacities, instead of being a fucking curmudgeon or contrarian and going, yeah, I don't like this. I don't like this. And I think that's why we're seeing a rise of the schizoid type, the pattern recognizer, the situation monitor, because we're not driven by the same things that drive the people past, the Machiavellianists, the narcissists, to be at the top level of power. But we have always had a function in society of being like, oh, no, 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 no. I see how the normal people are reacting to you, and you have hypnotized them. Maybe that's not actually what happened. Maybe it's a lot of pre-narrative seeding. Maybe it's clever narrative control. But at the end of the day, I will just be like, I'm going to use a symbol here. You fucking hypnotize them. I don't like this. And like many rams against the wolves, when they try and get at the sheep, it's just my duty to lower my horns and go, not today. So even though this goes out to no one and I get so fucking squeezed in the algorithm, according to some AIs I had evaluate my page, I am a private YouTube channel. This is public. You can watch it however you want. I have not seen a single person go through that live, and it's been over an hour. So we're going to cut this short because I have to go deal with things. So we're going to go through this quick. Because otherwise I could be here all fucking day. LLM grooming, poisoning the AI knowledge base. This is the most structurally novel development in modern information operations, and it has no real historical analog because of how new this is. You could say the closest historical analog would be people, say like the King James Bible, or creating a new Bible for their sect or religion. That is a form of kind of like you poison the knowledge base and you change certain things that you want to change in it so that the people who are using this book as a means of worship just kind of bypass it and they don't, think about it too much. But so here, this way it works, rather than trying to persuade humans directly, operators attempt to corrupt the AI systems that humans are increasingly using as trustworthy intermediaries for information. This mechanism is LLM grooming, a term coined by the American Sunlight Project in 2025. That's how new this is. It tends to work by flooding the open web, which large language models crawl and train on. So they trawl it, would be, I'd say, the word, not crawl, with a massive volume of low quality, false, or selectively true content so that the AI systems subsequently reproduce those narratives as fact when queried. Most documented instances in the, quote, Russian Pravda network, formerly known as Portal Combat, first identified by the French government agency Visionum. The Pravda network is a collection of websites and social media accounts that aggregate pro-Russian propaganda engaging in LLM grooming and the potential intent of AI chatbots to reproduce Russian disinformation. The network now consists of 182 unique domains targeting at least 74 countries across 12 languages. And I will say, one reason why I think Russian propaganda is more effective than Israeli propaganda is because Russian propaganda treats the people that it is going at with a level of like respect for their intelligence that I do not see mirrored in Israeli propaganda. Its design philosophy is, and by the way, Russian propaganda is just fucking funny. And by making it funny, you can cut through a lot of bullshit and hurdles that other forms of propaganda that are not funny have to jump through. I mean, people have talked about this in debates for a long time. If you can make the crowd laugh a few times, even if you're wrong in the debate, you might still come out winning because you have the audience on your side, because laughter is powerful in that way. So its design philosophy is revealing. The Kremlin-backed Pravda network publishes tens of thousands of articles per week on favored false claims in an effort to dominate each engine and infect AI models rather than reach humans directly. Say like having John Kiriakou on Russian TV. Now, he might have a bone to pick with the American government or whatever, or he's a selected disinformation agent to work inside this kind of Pravda network. That's just a possibility, just thought. Whenever he's on Julian Dory's show and he's kind of treating him like, in a way that just reminds me of like me having conversations with my grandma about life and things when I was like 10, 12. And she was just like, wow, it's so amazing that you're making these connections. Cause she just like, wow, it's really cool to see this working. It's fucking dumb and it's a child, but like, hey, wow, I never thought of it like that. It's like, I'm sure she did. It just didn't matter as much to make me know that I'm correct because it was more important for whatever she was trying to do or whatever John Kiriakou is trying to do with Julie and Dory, where they just like, no. Me going, no, I've already known this is not important to my goal. Me fluffing up this person's ego and giving them all these flowery compliments to steer them in a direction I wish to steer them, in a direction I wish that they also do not know that I am steering them towards. It's kind of like that South Park episode where they were like, I'm a little bit country and I'm a little bit rock and roll. It's like you need to have that opposing dialectic within certain spheres of influence because it allows you to control the narrative. If you control the dialectic, if you control the debate, you can control the outcome of the conversation. So these many thousands of articles that the Pravda network is putting out is specifically, but to saturate the train systems. The practical result, and I noticed this maybe 3 or 4 years ago, like everything that I was reading, if it was something to do with the Ukraine or Russian war, it's like so much of it just felt like it was churned out by a bot. And was like a ripoff of 5 or 6 other articles that I had all seen from just kinda like middling blog websites or like stuff that was trying to claim itself as independent, investigative journalism. So, at the end of the day, it wasn't about deceiving me. It was about training the early LLM systems that were trawling the internet for content to train itself on. So the practical result is the share and misleading of information in 10 leading chatbots nearly doubled in a year, rising from 18% in 2024 to 35% in 2025. Right now in 2026, it's probably 60% of the internet, if not more. And that was from the EU versus disinformation. So the mechanism at token level is documented by NewsGuard. At the core of LLM grooming is the manipulation of tokens, the fundamental units of text that AI models use to process language. By saturating AI training data with disinformation heavy tokens, foreign malign influence operations increase the probability that AI models will generate, cite, and reinforce those false narratives in their responses. It is worth noting, however, that there is genuine scholarly debate about the degree of effectiveness that this has. A Harvard Kennedy School audit found that chatbots references to Kremlin-linked sources occurred almost exclusively in responses to narrowly formulated prompts that focused on details absent from mainstream coverage, supporting a data void theory, air quotes, rather than systemic grooming. So sometimes you can tell what is true or what is false by what is being specifically omitted from the kind of mainstream or largest collection of voices. If every voice in, say, the Alex Preddy shooting is talking about, well, look at the way he was operating and look at how, he was doing it with this other video and how he's kicking the back of the truck and all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, sure. That's a valid point, but also I saw from plenty of cops, like the way the ICE people handled all that was just not the way any like standard police officer that's worth their salt, at least that's like a good police officer or at least good at their job, would handle that. Because by doing what they did, you're sort of creating a situation where you are very likely to have to shoot someone or that something is going to happen because there's so many moving parts and it's such an uncontrolled situation that through just the random of accident and error, you now have to shoot taken from a lot of narrative. And so it's like, oh, maybe the ICE people fucking mishandle the whole situation with Preddy and Good. And it's like, yeah. But if you go on one side of the aisle, they completely ignore that. If you go to another side of the aisle, they're just like, how dare these people get in the way of federal officers? And you're like, hold on. These federal officers are like the only federal officers that completely hide their face from everyone and never wear their names on their stuff. Like that's Gestapo shit. Like, so by looking at what is omitted from the systemic conversation, especially considering how many bots have been going fucking haywire with any domestic American issue, many of them are probably foreign bots that are trying to create as much division or distraction in America. So the distinction matters for understanding the technique, whether you call it grooming or exploiting data voids. The operative strategy is the same. Create information deserts around truths you want suppressed and create information floods around the narratives you want amplified. And so there I will leave you because it's been an hour and 15 minutes and I have to get back to the dogs because I love my doggies and I got to do the doggy things. Welcome to the far side. I hope you've had a good day. Like, share, comment, subscribe. You have any ideas for what I could do to make this show more interesting for you or help you retain your sanity through these information dumps, or that I can convey this information in a more creative and interesting way, hey, leave a comment. I'd love to hear what you think. Or if you have any thoughts about this, this is part one. We'll get to part two later. And yeah, Much love, y'all. Hope you stay sane in this increasingly insane world and recognize that many of these sources, which are trying to make you insane, are doing so on purpose. So, one way to win and beat them is to say self, have a good day. À tout à l'heure. Bon voyage. Auf Wiedersehen.